she was trying to defend it and she was like, just kept lying, like flat out lying.
Welcome back to Behind the Edit, your go-to podcast for unpacking the actual reality behind reality TV. I'm Lachlan, Guertin.
And I'm Tahlia, Pritchard. And today we had a former groom join us who went through Final Vows, who could tell us all about it, Layton Mills.
Yes, Layton was on last year's season with Melinda Willis. She was our first ever guest on Behind the Edit.
Yeah.
He had some really great insight into Final Vows, what we don't get to see on TV, and how much influence the producers have on their decision. Plus, how he uses the contestants' Instagram captions to work out their relationship status, which I'm going to pay more attention to now.
I wasn't actually expecting him to have been watching this season. So I was quite excited that he had been watching it quite religiously, had some tea to spill to us and some insights, I guess, from his time filming the show that kind of, I don't know, make you reevaluate things about the couples making this final decision.
It was obviously a shorter week with only 2 episodes, but I'd love to hear your thumbs up and your thumbs down.
Okay, thumbs up. I'll start positive. The reunion is around the corner. I think we can all agree that it is normally the best episode of the season. Everyone comes back together. There's going to be shocks. I mean, we know the shock. It's Ellie and Jono, right?
But it's going to be a great shock nonetheless. Even though we know what's going to happen, I'm excited to see how it unfolds.
I can't wait to hear their backstory of when they just kicked this off. Anyway, I'm very excited about that episode. Thumbs down for me was probably just, this season didn't make me believe in love. I think I was saying at the very start, I do, as much as I like the show for the drama and, you know, all the bullshit that comes with it, I do like to follow along a good love story. And for me last year, it was actually Melinda and Layton. Even though they clashed a lot, there was something about them as a couple that I was like really rooting for and wanting them to win and wanting them to work out. There's no one this season that I could get behind.
I really enjoyed watching Jaden and Eden's love story unfold this season, but I got an interesting insight into their relationship when I attended Nova's Married at First Sight dinner party last week.
Yes, I was jealous.
It kind of goes into my thumbs up and thumbs down of the week because I saw a lot of drama going down. Firstly, I'm going to give a thumbs up to Ridge and Jade. There was confirmation that they make it through the experiment. Obviously, they said yes this week, but they're still together now. They arrived super loved up, and he revealed that he has a tattoo of her name on his back. Very small, but in a dove, which I thought was poetic, maybe. So everything was good with them, but my thumbs down was that he was still a little bit immature in the relationship. There was a little bit of tension. He was asked if he planned on moving to the Gold Coast, and he said, "It depends if Jade keeps being a good girl. If she is, then maybe," which was a little bit icky, calling her a good girl. How do you feel?
Rumour has it he hasn't been a very good boy.
Yes, there have been the cheating rumours with Ridge.
Yeah.
It just felt a bit odd because obviously she's felt insecure about his maturity levels on the show. He says Deece. So seeing them was both a thumbs up and a thumbs down. My main thumbs down of the night, though, will go to Jaden and Eden. Obviously, they're super loved up. We saw that they committed to each other in Final Vows. But at the dinner party, even though they put on this united front, there was a video that came out at the end of the night where their whole cast went out to a nightclub in Sydney, and Jaden had his shirt off, Lauren had her hands around his body, Eden was nowhere to be found, and it's all just looked very suspicious, like what was going on here. I later found out from an insider that Eden was there. She went with the whole group. She left earlier in the night because Jaden was completely ignoring her. And then obviously Jaden and Lauren had fun on the dance floor together. Speculation that there was something romantic going on between them, but Lauren has since come out and said that she's a girl's girl. She wouldn't do anything to hurt Eden. Eden, though, has come out and said that she feels like she was disrespected by both of them. I think it's a bit gross that Jaden would do something like that when you've gone to an event with your partner. You're still technically meant to be together, and why would you do that to your partner, to disrespect them by getting close, getting half naked with another girl in public where everyone can see what's going on? I don't know. I just felt a bit gross.
I think that's valid. And the optics don't look good. I saw glimpses of the video, but it didn't look like there was a huge crowd of people out around them. So in saying that, it's sort of like, you know, the cameras are on you, you know you're being filmed. Even if you're hamming it up for the camera and just like having a bit of fun, being a bit drunk, letting loose, I think it's still respectful for one of them to give Eden a heads up the next day, being like, oh, we were filmed looking a bit chaotic on the dance floor. if it didn't mean anything, I don't really think it does, but I also do think it does look disrespectful to Eden and Jaden's relationship.
There was footage from earlier in the night as well where Eden was walking out of a building with Jaden. Then he lets her continue and he stops to go back and get Sarah and says something like, let's make a moment or let's start a scandal or something like that to make people assume that Jaden is now with Sarah. I get the whole idea of recoupling after the show to get publicity, but when you're still with your partner and they're there when you're trying to make a publicity stunt and they're not on board, it doesn't feel right. I don't think Eden and Jaden will last much longer, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I was going to ask, do you think this is it for them?
I'll be surprised if they last much longer than this because he's disrespecting her in public. Plus, she's also going to the media and saying that she felt disrespected.
Yeah, she spoke to the Daily Mail and said exactly that, so...
But we'll wait until they get their Instagrams back and they can come on behind the edit for the tell-all.
True, Team Eden, to be honest. Can I say that?
Yeah, I think that's valid. Let's get into our chat with Layton, though, because he has a lot to say about Final Vows.
Layton, thanks so much for joining us. Have you been watching this season of MAFS so far?
This is the first season I've actually watched the majority of the season, yeah. I had never watched MAFS previously. I know like most of the people say that, but when I found out that I was going to be on, I went back and like watched some of like the key seasons, like season 6 or whatever, but I never really like got involved. But this season, I don't know, maybe just because I'd done it myself and I'm looking at it from a different perspective, I feel like it was like therapy, like getting to like watch through, you know, and just, yeah, it was really therapeutic.
I was going to say, I feel like so many past contestants go on the show and then don't want to watch it ever again, but you've done the opposite then.
I tell you, this is a really weird thing. Like I couldn't watch our season on a big TV screen. I had to watch it on like a laptop where the screen was smaller because I felt like that like helped disassociate me from it a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Like when it's on the big screen and like the sound, I found it really hard to watch. So I feel like now that I've been through this season, I feel like my therapy's done. I'm ready to go back and watch like our season.
How does it feel then watching Final Vows and kind of reliving what you went through with this season?
Watching Final Vows I feel like it was pretty bittersweet because Mel and I had a pretty, it was like a pretty emotional Final Vows. It was a really nice Final Vows. Like Mel and I, no one really saw this, but we were like, all like after the last dinner party, we had a huge fight and like they separated us, like we went to different rooms. We filmed like a scene that no one saw after, like the next day, like seeing each other. But, you know, we missed like being able to sit next to each other and watch the video recaps that they show you because we'd been through this massive fight at the final dinner party, right? We had a big blow up, and in between that and filming Final Vows, we didn't really speak much. So like, you know, there was like, it was a roller coaster for us, and then getting to Final Vows, and I think we both kind of forgot about a lot of the rubbish and like focused on what we liked about each other and, you know, what we enjoyed through the experiment. And so it ended up being a really beautiful Final Vows. Like after it, we had like the producers, like the two main exec producers were like, you know, they were sort of, one of them was teary. They were like, the whole production room was like crying, you know? It was like, I think it was a very like authentic and, you know, it was nice. So it was a bit bittersweet.
Yeah. So you and Mel ended the experiment not on the best terms.
Oh, mate, our final dinner party, like you didn't see half the final dinner party. Like it was, they really edited that scene of Mel and I, but it was pretty tumultuous. Like she got up and left. They cut out a lot of like the honesty box. Like there was a big scene like there where, you know, and then we didn't speak. She left.
Wow.
We went back to separate apartments. They got us to film another scene after of like, hey, maybe you should, you know, you guys shouldn't end like this. Isn't how your story should, you know, should really end. It's quite sad, which is true. But then, you know, it wasn't great.
Well, what's that period like then when you leave filming? It's a few weeks, I'm guessing, until you meet again for Final Vows. How is that separation?
I can't quite remember exactly how long the gap is now. Like I've kind of forgotten about it, but like for me, like a few things happened throughout our series where they get you to film some stuff at the end as well. Like we like did some backstory pickups, like where they needed to get more of the backstory, and so like there was still some of that. And then you're just sort of thinking through your Final Vows, right? Because they've got to be approved by production, so you've got to think through what you want to say. And we were still fighting up until like a couple of nights before. And like I remember filming like my backstory, and like my producer was there. It was like 10 p.m. and we were packing down, and we were still like, Mel and I were arguing. And it's like, I still hadn't sent my Final Vows in at that stage. It was like 2 days before, 3 days
What
before.
kind of backstory are we talking about? Is this because they've kind of figured out your narrative
I think
the end?
it's not so much to change it, if like which is what it probably sounds like. But for example, they didn't know we had a similar car. You know,
Okay.
and I didn't want to show you, like, I don't like, you know, so I didn't want to show my car and my original backstory, so we didn't get any of that footage. And then they realized that, hey, you guys have like very similar he and she cars. We need to get like a shot of you in this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then this plays in the wedding episode, but it's filmed.
It plays in the back
after.
when they show you backstory initially, because they're like, that was really interesting, and it actually adds to the fact that you guys are really similar. They're like you guys are like a boy and girl version of each other.
Okay,
And that,
yeah.
like, so they wanted to get that, you know, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the time between Final Vows and the experiment, you're still fighting, but are you talking a lot?
Yeah, well, like
what's the communication like?
Yeah, we're talking, but you know, like we're still, like we were going through like this relationship phase where like we're still trying to navigate like the ups and downs, like still up until that point, right?
Yeah.
Because at each step along the way, something new would happen. Like for ours, the last dinner party was when Mel said, you know, I'm already there, when it was like relating to like the I love you. And then so we had a big kind of thing about that. So that was new. We hadn't experienced that in our relationship up until that point. So now we've got this gap where we're not seeing each other. We haven't got a resolution for that. We haven't resolved that issue. We haven't had a chance to even talk about it properly.
Yeah.
And we've got to write Final Vows saying what's the decision, right? So
Wow.
Do you guys chat about your decision together then, or do producers not want you to chat about it? at
no,
all?
there was a period where we weren't talking that much between that, you know, in that gap.
Wow. And were you allowed to see each other at all?
I mean, we probably could have seen each other, but Mel's in Brizzy. So at that stage, they send Mel back to Brizzy. I stay in Sydney, and then they get her back down for the Final Vows. But so yeah, so I think we still. I feel like when I watched this season, you kind of knew what was going to happen for every couple. Like you knew, you know, irrespective of whether they're going to play some music or make you think that, you know, this is going to go one direction. It's not. I feel like for Mel and I, like it was, you know, it could have went either way, you know. I think it was really authentic in that sense, you know.
Was it tough then, kind of deciding to pursue the relationship and continue?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think for both of us, for both Mel and I, we knew that there were so many things there's so many parts of our relationship that was really good, but then there were so many parts of our relationship that was a challenge as well because of how similar we are. And I think we were sort of both feeling like, you know, how are we going to make compromises to make this work? Because we're not the best at compromise. So yeah, it was definitely hard. Yeah, for sure.
When would you say you made your decision?
Look, I had a chat to my sister, which they sort of filmed out. And I think where it sort of landed for me, and probably for Mel as well, is like the things that we had been fighting about, for all intents and purposes, aren't reasons to end the relationship. Do you know what I mean? It's like, hang on, you've said, you know, someone said they're in love, but in a way that, someone didn't understand it. And there was some, you know, it wasn't like I've been going and seeing my ex on the weekend. Or, you know, it was like the reasons we're fighting about aren't ones that you would just sort of walk away if you really care about this person.
Yeah.
And I really think that, like, for Mel and I in particular, a lot of our bonding as well as arguing was done off camera, right? And so we were still trying to, like, a big part of it for both of us was like, I feel like we'd be so much better outside of this experiment. Because a lot of ours was like taken away by this narrative that production wanted to sort of go down, which was like the Harrison and Bronte, Mel and Layton. And it took away from us being able to, like, you know, ease into our relationship and like bridge the gap. So every time we'd start to get some time to spend with each other, it'd be like, now we're going to throw in a couples swap, you know, or now let's do the couples retreat and like make you guys, you know, clash. It sort of took away from us being able to like just have the noise outside of the relationship.
Yeah. Once you make that decision then internally that, okay, I'm going to say, will let's stay together. Do you consult Mel? Do you say, I'm saying yes. Are you going to say yes?
No.
Okay.
No. For us, I mean, I don't know what happened with other couples, but there was
Yeah.
none of that with Mel and I for sure. Absolutely none.
Wow.
We genuinely had no, and I very specifically remember the pack down when it was 10 p.m. because I still had all the production guys like packing down the cameras at my place, and we were fighting via text. And I had my production, like my story producer, sitting there. I'm like, how do we get past this? I was like, literally, like, I don't know what to do. And she was just like, oh. She's like, I need you to get your Final Vows into me. Yeah. So like, there was none of like, there was no like coordinating it or, hey, what are you saying? None of it. Yeah.
I kind of want to get into some of the Final Vows, even the writing of it and all that kind of stuff. But first, I think we should show you the clip of Jack reading his Final Vows story.
Yeah.
And then we can dig into it a little bit deeper.
I'm concerned that our biggest connecting factor may have been the brutal environment of the experiment, where our loyal personalities bonded over having each other's back and picking each other up when need be, like teammates. Not lovers. Tori,
She's just like, what?
I'm sorry to say, I didn't commit myself to this process for a platonic relationship, nor a teammate.
What's the stare after it? That's been rehearsed, for sure.
We are not in love. So how can I commit to you and ask you to uproot and move your life to the Gold Coast?
I love how it's like pause for effect.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah.
like after the line, what do you say?
Not team. Oh, we're like teammates.
Yeah, and then the steely look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that something that it says in your script, pause, or there's producers
yeah,
in
like
your
one
ear?
of those like beat.
Does that happen?
No, not from mine. No way. Yeah. The only advice like I got, which is because sometimes like I speak really quickly, and they're just like, Layton, come now, just speak slow. Like they didn't have to do any corrections for mine. I didn't get any. Like you've got to get it approved. And like for example, like the wedding vows, I had some back and forth with the producers of like, you know, oh, you need to add more of this in. Like let's talk more about your backstory, like you know your childhood and things of that nature. And maybe a couple of comments here and there. But the final vows, there was like none. It was like, that's beautiful. Like it's perfect.
Right. I was really curious about that, especially with
Yeah.
the context of Jax, because I thought, did he write this or did a producer write it so he sounds really dramatic as he's saying it? Or is that really coming from his
I
heart?
reckon there was probably some pushing to like for dramatic effect for sure.
So the producers didn't have a say on what you said. Did they have any kind of sway on, oh, you should stay with her, she's really great, or, oh, this isn't too great, you should leave?
No. It was just sort of like, I'll tell you what, like again, like I had a pretty good relationship with again, our producer. And she was like, look, Layton, if you guys don't stay together, I want you to put your all into saying why you guys don't want to stay together. And this wasn't just directed at me, this was Mel as well. She's like, we want to feel, right? So if you guys aren't going to be together, for whatever reason, we need to feel why you aren't together, and if you are staying, we also want to feel like why you're staying. So she just wanted it to be emotional and authentic. She just, you know, if you're not going to stay together, we want to feel that, you know.
Yeah.
It should be heartbreaking for, you know, the fact that you guys had you could have had a really strong relationship, but now you're not together. So we want to feel that. So again, for ours, I didn't feel like there was any pushing towards an inauthentic path. But I also think Mel and I had a really authentic journey, you know. So like our relationship was wild during the experiment. So I feel like for others, where it's like it becomes like a pretty clear narrative, then there's probably some pushing into, you know, we need more of this narrative.
After you make your decision at Final Vows,
Yeah.
you film your piece to camera talking about how happy you are. What happens next? Because on The Bachelor, the producers might organise a hotel room. That's it. But what happens on MAFS?
Yeah, for us it was because Mel had come from Brizzy, and so I was in Sydney. Mel was from Brizzy. They put Mel up in a hotel, which was quite close by, like walking distance from where our Final Vows was filmed. So for us, it was like, do you remember the Truman Show? Did you ever watch the Truman Show?
Yeah.
Where like at the end of it, he sort of walks out, and then like it flashes to like this scene where they're all standing in a bar, and then the show just ends, and they go, "All right, what else is on?" And it's like cut. It's like totally done.
Yeah.
For us, it was like that. It was like we finished Final Vows, we walked out, and then it was like, all right, see you guys. We went back to Mel's,
Wow.
the hotel, you know, that they got Mel, like a little Airbnb, and we just had dinner that night. We ordered Uber Eats, and we just had a dinner in, got some wine.
Are there any other pickups where they're like, oh, can you come back and film this or record this? Or it's literally just wrapped?
Yeah. Because for us, they did all that first. Like I got there
Yeah.
quite early, and they did all the walking around and like, you know, all the shots they wanted to get. After the Final Vows, it was just beautiful. Go upstairs, film like your Voxies after it, talk about how you felt, and you know, and then it's like, all right, thanks.
How long did
Good
it take
luck.
to get back into like normal life where you're like not expecting a camera to follow you around?
Oh man, like that was like not until after we'd split up. Like there was, I remember like Mel and I were were having lunch in Brizzy, a place, I think Cali Hotel maybe, and like we were having an argument about something, I can't remember what it was, and like there was this toll truck driver that like drove past. One person like you, the least, like the person that you would least expect to be like a MAFS super fan, and like drove past and was like, beep, beep. And we're in this argument, we turn, he's like, yeah, I love you guys. We're just like, if only he knew. Like we're sitting here having an argument about something. It was like, so that like happened pretty consistently with Mel and I. Like people, yeah, they were super supportive of us in the relationship. So yeah, and it wasn't until after we sort of relationship ended.
Do you feel like watching it back this season, people's relationships feel more structured, or they're playing for an end game of ending up at Final Vows?
Yeah, exactly. Like that's again, like this is the only season I've really like I've watched it, but what I felt was like it felt to me like a little bit like exactly that. Like this is the strategy.
Yeah.
Do like this is, which I think that's probably unfortunately a nature of the beast, that when you have a show like this big, you're probably going to get people that want, that want to be on there as long as they can. Like the best example I think as well is probably in our season, Josh and Mel, right? They left like week 2 or whatever. Yeah. They it didn't work, it clashed, and they left. There was no, hey, let's just wait this out 3 or 4 weeks. I don't, so like, to me that's quite authentic, because it's like, I don't care, I don't want to be on I want to go home.
For sure. You and Mel were kind of touted as this alpha power couple. And looking at Jack and Tori's journey, I would assume that they would kind of hope to be the same. Do you see them in that same light, or do you see them trying to play a role? There
were some things that I picked up on when Tori was sort of talking, and I felt like the verbatim or the semantics were very much more towards trying to confirm confidence and dominance and independence, which aligned with how Jack was trying to probably present himself as independent. I want someone that's dominant, strong, But, there was sometimes, maybe I felt a little bit like it could have almost been more of like a question as opposed to a statement of, I'm independent. I think there was, I can't remember exactly what it was, but there was a moment there where Tori said something like, I'm maybe becoming codependent. It's disgusting. But it felt like, maybe she felt like she was obligated to add that. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm not happy about this. You should be codependent with your partner. That's the whole point. That's the whole purpose of having a partnership, is codependency. And, you want to rely on your partner and you want your partner to rely on you. So I felt like maybe there was this sort of like conforming.
Yeah, she's still trying to play into like
is probably the word
woman.
for it. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Conforming. And I don't know if that was by nature of just, Jack or also the narrative they were probably trying to push on it. But I did pick up on some of that. Yeah.
Do you think they'll have success in the real world?
Look, I mean, the same with everyone that was probably watching with theirs was like, the relationship wasn't evolving at a pace that you would have expected based on, I mean, Timothy said it, he's like, you're a very sexual person and you both are, this relationship probably isn't progressing at the pace you would expect. That seriously, that does play into it a little bit. You think, okay, well, would it be moving forward at a quicker pace? And had Jack been paired with Jade, how quick would that relationship have evolved? And I think we can all probably make a pretty solid argument that it would have evolved quicker, right?
This is a rogue question that is going slightly off script. What would the wind emoji mean to you if you were to text that to another guy?
Oh, yeah, the wind emoji. Okay, look, the only thing I can think about for a wind emoji is like, is blow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like what I was thinking. But it's, you know what? Okay, now
not ghost.
Let's
not
unpack
ghost.
it. No, if it was a ghost, like, why wouldn't you just put a ghost or something?
Not fart.
Yeah, but it raises a good question. What a weird thing to say. Like, what a weird thing to text. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think of it like the psychology, someone that's saying that. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, why?
Yeah.
Like, what are you trying to say?
Especially as a singular emoji.
Yeah.
Like, maybe it was like the wind and then the fire emoji or something to be like, had a good time. But
it's just like, there's so many questions. It's like, what are you trying to say, man?
Let's take a quick break and then we can get into Lauren and Jono's fiery final vows. So Lauren and Jono were the only couple this season to not stay together after the final vows.
Yeah.
Here is what she had to say.
It was brought to my attention that you had been continuing to build some kind of relationship with another bride, one that you hid from me, then had the audacity to blame me for when you were exposed. My world felt like it had come crashing down around me. Instead of taking accountability at the final dinner party, you chose to try and flip the script on me. Blame me for not caring, never liking you, and not being here for the right reasons. Although you completely wasted my time in terms of finding a romantic partner, you taught me that I should always trust my gut. Jono, I don't see a future with you. And no, it's not me, it's you.
Do you know what that reminds me of? You are the weakest link. Goodbye.
With the music as well.
Yeah. You're fired.
I do like that they both just laughed at each other's vows. Obviously in, a sarcastic kind of way,
Yeah.
but it was kind of amusing.
That like spiraled so quickly, right? Like that escalated so quickly to being like toxic. Like for both of them, I mean. Like in the sense of it just became,
Like
irreconcilable differences.
a week ago they would have said yes before the Ellie stuff came out.
Well, I mean, this one's a hard one, right? Because I see, like, first of all, I think that irrespective of what anyone said, because even I think Lauren came out and said that what Jono was doing was innocent, there was nothing in the text. I still think irrespective of what he was doing was totally wrong. I think there's 100 texts to another woman who's in the experiment. It's like a net it's like a net negative thing to do. You're not going to, there's no benefit for you, right? It's not making your life better in any way, and you know that there's a risk that it's going to hurt your partner. It's going to offend your partner. You're speaking to another woman, of course, like in the experiment consistently, which is wrong. But I also felt like there were some moments like where I felt like this was Sarah was doing this a bit as well. There was some little senses of emasculation going on as well when at the honeymoon saying you're too nice for me, So I felt like for both of them, there were probably there was faults. I think Jono's definitely was the worst in the sense of, for me anyway, personally. So it's a hard one to know, like, at what point did they decide that, okay, this isn't going to work?
Yeah. I think, Jono's issue was hiding it too, right? Like if it was innocent text, don't hide it from your partner. And then I can see what you mean by the "you're too nice for me" comment, and nice qualities then framed as an insult nearly for that person.
Oh, totally. It's like, it's the same as like, what was, we'll talk about this after, but Sarah, I think there was a lot of that sense of emasculation with Sarah and Tim as well. In fact, at the end of it, like when they had their final vows, he made a comment saying, I now feel funny and I feel masculine. So like he's bringing up his final vows to say, now I feel like more,
Yeah.
And I feel like that's never a good thing for the relationship. But then, for him, I don't even think even if it's innocent, you just don't need to be doing it. Why do you need to be spent, even though you're texting everyone, men and women, you don't need to be texting if there's the potential for that to upset your partner.
Yeah. With Tim and Sarah, they ended the experiment all loved up. Everything was great. And then when they're at home, then they kind of, with editing, show that there's a sense of jeopardy. Oh, he might not stay with her. Do you think that was just editing, or do you actually have time to reconsider when you're at home?
You definitely have time. Look, to be perfectly frank, if I was in Tim's shoes, I definitely would have been thinking really hard about what I want to do in this relationship. I don't think, the sense I got from Sarah was like, there's no, I wouldn't be able to trust something like, when, there was just, I feel like when people get really angry, that's when like their real personalities come out. And I don't know if you remember the dinner party where she got super, she was trying to defend it, and she was like just kept lying, like flat out lying, and then just snapped and was like, "Put your hand up if you've cheated." It was like the real, it was like,
that was a real choice that moment.
yeah. So I feel like he, definitely would. If I was in his position, thinking, okay, well, someone who's nearly 30 years old, still, lying to go and see their ex. And I think the biggest thing for me about that as well is justifying that was innocent as well. You've admitted openly that this person is treating you in a negative way. Like they're not respecting you, but you want to keep going back. So that was what she was saying in the, initially, my ex-boyfriend, I just keep going back. He's disrespecting me, yada, yada.
Yeah.
He's also in a relationship with you're going out and meeting him on the weekend while you're in an experiment where you're supposed to be committing your time and energy and attention to someone else. Then you're lying to the person you're with by saying, I'm going to babysit, or like, what was it? Like babysit.
Dog sit.
Dog sit. Now you're lying about it. And now you're asking somebody, hey, what should I wear to this? Like all these things for someone that's almost 30 years old. You think, at what point are you going to get out of that? Do you know what I mean? So that's what I would have been thinking. You know, I feel like once you get to, you know, those characteristics are something that would be risky. You know, so for him, I definitely would have been thinking about it for sure, and I feel like he probably was, but I also felt like he was really liked her a lot. Like that's a sense that I got. Like some of the things that he was saying to her, you know, he would often make comments, you know, like when he's like, "I've got a thing for you," or whatever it was. Like it was quite genuine. It was like, you know, this guy really does like this girl. Whereas I felt like hers was a bit, I just couldn't trust it.
In that time apart, is it easier then to think of the good moments versus the drama and the fights and all that kind of stuff as well, or do you kind of think about them both equally?
Look, I think for Mel and I, ours was, I don't think there was any deal breakers in the sense of that sort of distrust. It was more about support for us. The common theme was around Mel feeling like I wasn't supporting her. Excuse me, particularly with like the Harrison thing, and you know, like our things were a bit different. You know, so it was much easier to think of the good because it's easy to say, okay, the bad is stuff that, as two adults who want to work through this and make a relationship work, if we work out how we can overcome these things, then, you know, we could have a great relationship. Whereas I think with Tim and Sarah, it's like, well, there's distrust here. And for me, once trust has been broken, irrespective, there's a massive risk in going forward with that person. And I feel like that was a huge break of trust, and then lying about it, and then all the defense, and then the apologizing for it because it was, you know, I'm sorry, it was innocent, but I apologize for lying to you. No, you should be apologizing for just doing it, not the lying about it. Like doing it was wrong in general. So for me, that would have been like a deal breaker.
We know that they obviously said yes at Final Vows and they arrive at the reunion together.
Right.
But the latest teaser for the reunion teases that
does it?
things aren't so great for them.
Right.
Here's what happens.
Can we just talk about the Jono and the Ellie the Jono and the Ellie for a second? It's like, I love how you go from there not being anything there to like 3 weeks later in a fully fledged relationship.
Yeah, right.
The must-see
That's so good.
event.
There is nothing going on there at all. And I can't wait for the reunion.
Every bride and groom
That aged well.
returns.
Oh, they're together.
I called it.
Scores will be settled
I feel disgusted.
once
I'm so happy.
and for all.
Don't tell me what I feel.
You're not hurt. You don't give a about me. But Jono, mate, shush your face. I'm talking.
All hell
Shush your face.
You guys do this all the time.
is about to break loose.
You're the weakest woman I've ever met in my life.
I want to leave.
Sunday at 7 on Now.
Did she say fakest?
Yeah.
Fakest. She's 100% talking about Sarah. I bet you.
So it does tease that Sarah's pulled Tim aside at the dinner, yelling at him, screaming in his face.
Yeah.
Things aren't great for them. And we do know now that they're not together because Tim's been photographed with another woman.
Right. So why is she like putting up like at the wedding, like after the wedding, like got my man? It's like, but you guys aren't in a relationship.
The Instagram captions. You've
Yeah, the
noticed?
Instagram captions, because that was always like really telling, like because you could see like I won't go into it, but like in our season, it was quite interesting knowing what was happening to see what people were saying in their captions, because I knew how relationships were unfolding. I knew the stuff that was going on. So it was pretty interesting to see what people were saying, because that was like their way of like getting their voice out.
Okay, yeah.
You know what I mean? And so like...
So do you write the captions
Yeah,
and then
'cause you
send
write
them
the-
to producers
Exactly.
and then they
That's
put
right.
it all up for you?
And so it's interesting to watch it, because then that gives you an insight into like what their mindset's like. It's like, why are you saying this? What are you trying to get out of saying this?
So she's on Instagram putting up this happy narrative.
putting this happy narrative, like
Yeah,
multiple photos, and like, I've got my man or whatever it was. And
Yeah.
like, it's a bit like, you guys aren't in a relationship now.
I'm looking at them now. So Sarah's is more reflective. Like there is one that just says, got my man. And then another one that's, what a wild ride we had. No matter what, only we know what happened and the connection we shared.
Yeah.
Our journey was far from perfect, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
We
And it was just
shared, like,
reflective.
us.
Yeah, true, about
Yeah,
the journey.
true.
Whereas you look at Tori's, we know that she and Jack are still together, and it says, this experiment is only the beginning of our journey. Here's to the next chapter of us. And it's looking to the future.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a good hint that you
yeah.
know what their relationship status is based on the Instagram stories.
Yeah,
the Instagram
yeah.
captions.
Yeah, it's very hard to like lie with a pen. Do you know what I mean? You can kind of get the sense of, it's like, when you're texting someone and you can text when they're being snarky or like they're being, you just know, right? Like the way someone's writing something. I just feel like people lack self-awareness. To see like what they're saying. It's like, we can see it.
The other big thing, obviously, in the trailer was Jono and Ellie arriving hand in hand at the reunion. When it comes to couples that haven't met by being paired together, but they've met through the show, do you think they count as a success story?
Oh, man, that's a hard one. You can't say it's a success story because it didn't evolve in the show. That's just a successful dating afterwards. There's nothing to do with it. But what I do think the way they cast is they would add people who could potentially have a dating history that fits the profile of other people they're putting in.
Okay.
So it's like, not to say they did this, but it could be as an example, like putting Jade in after. Or Sarah and Jack, for example. I don't know what Sarah's ex-boyfriend was like, but I feel like there's also an element of, we're just going to put some of the golden apple in there. We're going to put like a little something in there just to little bait, see if we can get a nibble.
Yeah.
I definitely see that for sure. And look what happens, like with Dan and what was his name? What was the dude that was with the Brazilian girl?
Carolina.
That's right. Yeah,
true.
Yeah.
Dion,
They I think they definitely put some sort of like, temptation.
Speaking about the reunion in general, what was that period of time like between Final Vows and then reuniting with the rest of the cast?
Oh, man, that was cool. That was good to, like, catch up with it because you hadn't caught up with everyone for so long. And it's like you've had some time to, like, decompress and just, like, get back to sort of normal life, I guess. And, it was just sort of, like, good to catch up with everyone and, just see what everyone's been doing. So, like, that's enjoyable. I mean, our reunion wasn't too controversial in the sense of, like, there wasn't any super surprises. There was no, like, Jono and Ellie, like, coming in. It was like, how have you guys just had 3 children? And
I was going to say it's about 3-4 weeks from doing Final Vows to reunion filming, is it?
I think the reunion from memory was early December, and then the last, like, you finished Final Vows around November, and I think like it must have been October that you did like the last final dates and stuff. So there's not much, like, there's not a big gap in that period of time. So that's a relationship that's evolved very quickly. Going from like,
especially because it's so platonic.
Going from like, this encapsulates the word plutonic, guys. Couldn't be you couldn't be, and then it's like,
we're in love.
yeah, we're in love.
What would be your general advice then for the contestants post-show when they're watching things, when they're kind of recapping and processing what is unfolding, when you don't know what the edit's going to be? What's your takeaway?
I mean, for me in particular, it was just like focus on what I was focusing on before, and that's what I've been doing is just focusing on my work and just sort of removing myself a little bit from it. It's like, I feel like that's the healthiest thing. Like it was an amazing experience. You go in there and you meet someone that could be the person that you end up falling in love with and staying with, and it might not work out that way, but it's an experience nonetheless. And you've got to know that you've got to move on. Like it's just, you live your normal life. You don't want to, for me anyway, associate yourself just necessarily as doing that, and that's your thing, right? I think there's nothing to be gained going out and trying to consistently prove a point of like, this isn't what happened, and it's this, I don't. Well, it's not true. I guess everyone's sort of different, but my personal feeling is just, what are you going to benefit from, arguing with people that don't really matter? That's just, you're better off just focusing on life and disassociating from it. Yeah.
What challenges do you think the couples who have stayed together face now moving forward into the future? Like after you're in such a dramatic show and I guess you get used to some sense of the drama and other couples to fixate on, is it weird to then go into real life and try to navigate your relationship?
Yeah, definitely. I think the biggest risk is if that becomes a pillar of your relationship. It's like, this is what is sort of brought us together and makes part of the foundation of why we're together. Like, it was us versus them, for example, like in the Jack and Tori perspective. That shouldn't be why you guys are staying together, because you feel like you bonded. It's almost like a trauma bond.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, that's like, I think you've got to be really self-aware of, am I with this person because I like the fact that, there's a lot of noise around us or whatever it might be? that's not the right reason to stay in a relationship with someone. So I feel like it's just got to be like, you've just got to be really self-aware and to know why am I with this person? What are the characteristics and traits that I love about them, and the reason that I want to stay with them, and what I liked about them when I met them, as opposed to, we're a show, we're on this show together. Shouldn't be the reason you stay in a relationship, because otherwise it's going to go down south when all the noise and fuss is gone.
Yeah, next year's cast come
Yeah,
through,
yeah,
and then
yeah,
it's just
yeah.
kind of like,
It's like-
where are you?
Yeah, seriously.
Okay, we'll take a quick break and then we'll get straight into the honesty box.
Oh, great, can't wait.
Okay, not to re-traumatize you completely, but we have an honesty box question for you.
Because the last honesty box went so well for me.
What did you say before? It's like exposure therapy, right?
Yeah,
We're just helping you
this
on
is
your
exposure
journey.
therapy. Okay. A lot of female participants have said dating post MAFS is hard, while some of the men have said it's never been easier. What has your experience been? I mean, this is a pretty easy question for me, because I sort of isolated myself a lot post MAFS, because I moved up north. I'm selling a place in Canberra, and I've been really focusing on some work stuff, so I haven't just been out in the dating world. I think it is actually I feel like it's quite difficult, because you first of all, you've spent a lot of time with at least for Mel and I in our situation. We have a lot of respect for each other, and we spend a lot of time together, and you don't want to, you're always thinking to yourself, okay, well, if I go out on a date, then you don't want that person to see it. I mean, eventually it will, I'm sure it will happen, but I feel like that's something that plays in your head, and I don't know, I feel like I don't want to put a dating profile up on, on Hinge or something. When I put my dinner party profile picture up on, and some stupid joke about I've already been married once, So I feel like I don't know. I feel like it's okay. You know what? I've got a better way to say this. I feel like maybe the men who are saying that are probably not necessarily saying the dating has been easier, but meeting women.
Yeah.
Maybe not necessarily the women that you would date.
But in a more casual
is maybe
context.
being easy. Maybe casual rendezvous, as
Yeah.
But I reckon it's still challenging.
It was Jesse last week was telling us how he's had so many DMs now.
Oh man, I mean Jesse's no doubt, because Jesse's very he's very true to himself. I think he like it or love it, he's himself and he bees himself, and I think there's a lot of people who resonate with that, and so I feel like maybe that probably gives a lot of his followers the confidence to be very open with him.
Well, he said he happily admitted to going on dates with fans who became friends, I think was his way of looking at it. Do you get wild DMs yourself?
I mean, I think that I think men and women get pretty wild, wild DMs. I think, I'll tell you one thing, it made me realise what a lot of women probably get from a lot of men just going into people's DMs. It's almost it's sort of intrusive in a way. It's just I feel like I have the right to go in and just say this, It's just whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
It's confronting, I imagine.
Yeah. But it's, I know, I've seen some of Jesse's stories and I'm like, just, jeez. I still think there's a lot of things you got to think about, and you want to be respectful to your partner as well. So, or your ex-partner.
Thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us.
Thanks
Layton.
for having me.
Thank
I
you.
think this helps me get through the PSC a little bit more.
Until reunion time.
Yeah, it's a reunion. It's awesome. Thanks, guys.
So we have the reunion coming up next, the final 2 episodes of the season.
Thank God.
We've had 4 current participants come on behind the edit throughout the season to give us little teasers of what we can expect at the reunion. Here's a little flashback to what they had to say. What can you tell us about the reunion then that's coming up?
Stay tuned.
Okay.
Even just a little sneak peek.
You probably know more than me. I sat with Stephen and we had a couple of drinks and we stayed out of the drama.
Okay.
I wasn't part of the drama.
It's probably the best way to be after
Yeah.
your hectic
Yeah, I
time
was like,
on the
I'm
show.
fully done with this.
Mate, buckle up. My God, buckle up. Get 2 buckles, 3 buckles.
I had a great time at reunion. I think because it was, like a big catch up with a bunch of friends that you haven't seen in ages. I think because we all knew it was done, everyone was a little bit more relaxed with what was happening, and the producers kind of had it was like school camp and teachers had lost control of the kids. So yeah, I had a great time. I just had a few too many drinks and a really good catch up with everyone.
I am so excited for reunion. I'm excited to get the backstory of Ellie and Jono. I want to see why Sarah has Tim up against the wall screaming at him.
We've heard from some insiders as well that Collins and Natalie will have a big moment, so we'll see if that makes the cut with all this other drama going on. I'm excited for that, but thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Behind the Edit.
If you like this podcast, please leave us a glowing review.
Make sure you follow us on all our socials, subscribe to our exclusive newsletter, and join our Facebook group. All the links will be in the show notes.
And we'll be back next week.
Behind the Edit is brought to you by Yahoo Australia, hosted by Lachlan, Guertin and Tahlia Pritchard. Produced by Caitie Browne. Social production by Alexa Tubertini. Yahoo Australia would like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, the traditional owners of the land on which this podcast was recorded, and pay our respects to elders past and present.